Joining me today is Executive Chairman of Alba Mineral Resources, George Frangeskides. Thanks for joining me today, George.
Thanks, Fran. Nice to speak to you.
You too. So last week, the company announced its final results, in which it outlined its new plans to create a Greenland-focused spin-out firm. And we've had many investor questions on both this and Alba's separate assets, which we'll probably cover in a separate video, but today is about Greenland. So in these results, you explained to investors that this restructuring will see the company form a new firm that will really unlock real and sustained value across its portfolio. That's how you said it. So could you just outline for us the rationale for this spin-out?
Sure. Well, as we said in our final results, there's a whole number of reasons, Fran, for why this makes sense for Alba and Alba shareholders. I mean, the Greenland assets are currently undervalued, materially undervalued in our view, in the Alba portfolio, and they should be trading at a much higher value, and that should be reflected in Alba's share price and market cap. So how do we unlock that value? Well, the way that we've determined is to spin out those Greenland assets into a new vehicle. It'll be standalone, it'll be Greenland focused, it'll allow the market to give those assets a proper valuation. And Alba will benefit from that by having a significant stake, which we'll come to, in Nuco. So that's kind of the main rationale. But why is it of benefit to Alba shareholders? Well, as I said, we'll have a significant stake. I'm expecting it to be a majority stake. That's subject to the final IPO raise. And Alba shareholders and Alba won't have any of the funding obligations. So that's a major benefit of the transaction. So all the upside, but none of the downside. The Listco management, the Nuco management, will focus on moving those assets into development and production, and we, Alba, will benefit from that focus and that drive to getting those assets into production. So I think those are, some of the reasons. The other thing, of course, is we'll also be focused then on what's remaining in our asset portfolio directly, which is the Clogau gold, which has been what's driven our share price appreciation in the last 12 months. Getting back into Ireland, doing the Irish Base Metals project, moving some of the other gold assets, the Glenfinith, for instance, into a more mature phase. There's a lot that we can be doing in Alba that we can now focus on, which is appreciative in terms of our share price, in terms of where we're heading. We want to get Clogau into production as soon as possible. So, focusing Alba and then having a focused Greenland vehicle that we still have a major investment in is all win-win for Alba as far as I and the board can see.
Are Alba incurring any of the IPO or ongoing costs at all?
Yeah, we are incurring the costs, but the agreement is that Nuco will reimburse Alba in full for those costs out of the IPO proceeds.
Great. And in terms of the process, has Alba appointed any advisors at all?
All advisors are appointed and they're all working away. So yeah, it's all full steam ahead.
And what percentage of the Nuco will Alba own?
So I've said it's a significant stake. We expect it to be a majority stake in Nuco, so a very significant stake. We'll be a major shareholder, the major shareholder in Nuco. There's no doubt about that. And the precise percentage will depend on final valuation, final raise in Nuco. But we are all, us and the advisory team, are expecting it to be a majority stake. And more detail about that will be released in due course, obviously, as the transaction proceeds towards a conclusion.
George, will existing Alba shareholders be offered preferential shares in Nuco?
Well, Fran, we're looking at a retail component for the IPO, so we're working on that, and there'll be news about that in due course, I'm sure. The structure of the transaction is what we determined to be the best possible value, to give the best possible value for Alba and its shareholders, and in terms of Alba receiving a significant majority stake in Nuco. So we think that's definitely the way forward for the IPO.
Right. And George, in terms of how the two vehicles will work alongside each other, can you see any potential conflicts of interest between New Listco and Alba, and how would this be managed exactly?
Well, it's a tried and tested path, as you might imagine. It's not the first time there's been a spin-out IPO on AIM or indeed any of the other major exchanges. What we are putting in place is a relationship agreement. That's a requirement. It is a formal contract between Nuco and Alba. It will govern the relationship between the parties so that Nuco knows is secure as an independent publicly listed company, albeit with a major shareholder that's going to be Alba. We will also, as Alba, have significant representation on the Nuco board. So, we will continue to have a strong influence on Nuco and its direction. We will be offering Alba's expertise, knowledge, database, everything, of course, to Nuco, our knowledge of just getting things done in Greenland. So we're going to be heavily involved. I mean, we're planning and designing the entire field programs for this summer. So, there will be a very close relationship, but a relationship that's governed by this overarching relationship agreement.
And just touching on the board, given the spin out, is there any need for continuing to engage the sort of fairly recently appointed directors Henson and Brunner?
Well, they're fantastic additions to the Alba board. So that's not on our radar as such. But what is on our radar is, of course, formulating this new board. And the new board, again, is something we'll announce in due course, but it's coming together very nicely. It's going to be a very strong and credible Nuco board, as I say, with Alba having significant representation on it. That might lead to the odd change to the Alba board, consequential changes, but nothing that I can sort of talk about yet. But that'll all come out in due course.
And sorry, just going back to having holdings in New Listco, what can you say are the benefits of having existing Alba shareholders holding New Listco shares directly as opposed to indirectly through Alba?
Well, I mean, if you want to invest in a pure Greenland play, then by all means, you can and should think about investing in Nuco, because it's going to be a pure Greenland-focused play with some very strong assets in it. If you like Alba's mix of assets, if you like the Welsh gold that we're trying to get into production, if you like the Greenland assets, there's no reason to get out of Alba. In fact, in a sense, you're probably better off staying in Alba, certainly, because if you like the Greenland assets, you're going to have all the benefit, the upside of those assets appreciating in value without Alba having any of the downside funding obligations. So in a sense, if you like the mix, then you're probably well positioned where you are. It doesn't mean you shouldn't or couldn't consider also investing in the Nuco, because it's got a different profile, it's got a focus, so it'll have its own. It's going to be its own beast, it's going to have its own life, and it's going to have its own board. So it has its own merits, of course.
And does Nuco intend to raise all necessary finance through to self-sustaining development at Tule Black Sands and Amitsoq as well?
Well, obviously there's going to be a significant raise on IPO, and thereafter it's really dependent. New management, including Alba, our view is to get at least one of the projects into development as soon as possible, move it into a mining license phase as soon as possible. Once it's in development capital can be a mix of equity and debt, and so that really remains to be seen. So that's I think a bit premature to sort of answer right now.
Fair enough. And George, just to understand a little bit more about this opportunity, can you just tell us what the benefits are of Greenland?
Well, Greenland's it's got significant mineral wealth. It's a very transparent Western style jurisdiction. Very clear mining laws, very clear laws generally. Anglophone, everyone speaks perfect English. It's actually not very far from us, albeit that the transport links can be challenging to get to the north, but it's a tried and tested route equally. So there's lots of benefits. There are lots of very big deposits. We think we've got 3 of them at least, in terms of Amitsoq, Tule Black Sands, and the Melville Bay Iron Ore Project. So we're very well placed, and Nuco will be very well placed as well. So benefits of Greenland, it's transparent. We know what we have to do to push projects forward. It's a very clear path to getting into production now. And in fact, the government is so supportive of the mining industry. and has been over the last several years, that they've made it easier, in fact, for us to get from an exploration license phase into a mining license phase. And that's just them trying to help the industry and people like us. So all in all, a very positive write-up, I would say, about Greenland as a mining sector and a country.
And what can you say about your current plan in this territory? And also looking ahead, is Alba looking to bring in any other assets into the company?
Well, Alba, no. I mean, we're really, really focused on Clogau and getting that into production. So we're drilling underground and at surface at the moment, double whammy, if you like, and that's all progressing very well. We are defining and refining the targets there that we want to then go in and bulk sample and see what grades we get out of that. Assuming that all goes well, we're going to be pushing forward to getting into production as soon as possible. So that's the focus. We never say never about our asset portfolio, but we will have that as a focus. We will have still the Horseshill investment as a significant investment. We may look to sell that to bring in funds for Alba. That just depends on how we see things in the next 6 to 12 months for oil. And we will have this very significant investment in Nuco. So there'll be a lot there for still on our balance sheet, and a lot there that we're still operating in terms of assets that we're operating. We're working on Ireland at the moment in terms of drill targets. So, there's a heck of a lot of interest still in the projects that we've got and the projects that Nuco will have. In terms of Nuco, I don't foresee either a need for Nuco to be looking at any other assets. It's got 3 significant deposits in diverse commodities, but all commodities that are riding high at the moment in terms of demand. Titanium dioxide, ilmenite, which is where you get titanium dioxide from, which is our Tule project. The graphite at Amitsoq, our very high-grade graphite, and the iron ore, which is, again, prices are at 10-year highs. So overall, it's a very strong asset portfolio for Nuco. So I don't see Nuco needing to move on other assets in the foreseeable future.
That's great. Thank you so much, George.
You're very welcome.